You think being on call 24/7 makes you valuable. It doesn't. It just turns you into a piece of office furniture.
Stay until the end, and I'll show you exactly how to destroy that habit.
Your phone buzzes and your hand moves before your mind does. That's not friendliness, that's training. Somewhere along the way, you turned yourself into a customer service line with a heartbeat. Available at midnight, available at dinner, available in the middle of a thought you'll never get to finish because someone needed you first. You call this being a good person, it's something else. Every time you answer instantly, you confirm a theory that people around you never had to say out loud, that you have no life worth protecting from interruption. Nobody tests that theory on purpose. They don't need to. Your own behavior runs the experiment for them, every day for free. Here's the part that stings. Your constant presence isn't making anyone love you more. It's making you invisible in a different way. The way a light switch is invisible, useful, assumed, never once wondered about. You've mistaken accessibility for connection. They're not the same thing. One's a transaction. The other's a choice. Somebody picking you when they didn't have to. Think about the last 10 times someone reached out to you. How many were actually about you? Not your help, not your opinion on their problem, not a favor, not a task, not a shoulder. You. If you have to think hard to answer that, you already know what this is about. Right now, almost nobody in your life has been given the chance to choose you because you never left. You never gave the room enough silence to notice you were standing in it. Consider the one time you don't answer right away. The apology arrives before the explanation does. Sorry, I know you're busy, You're already managing their comfort before you've decided what you even need. That reflex, repeated 10,000 times, is the entire architecture of the trap. And somewhere right now, someone is drafting a message to you they already know you'll answer because they've clocked you. They've done the math on you the way a con artist clocks a mark. They're not wondering if you'll respond. They're wondering how fast. That certainty wasn't always there. You built it, message by message, favor by favor, until your presence became as predictable as gravity and just as unremarked on. Predictable things don't get appreciated. They get relied on. Most people never live long enough to learn the difference, because learning it means doing the one thing that terrifies them. Going quiet long enough to find out who actually notices. Picture the phone glowing at 2 in the morning. You're not even awake enough to read the name on the screen, and your thumb is already moving toward it. That's not devotion. That's a reflex somebody else installed in you, one favor at a time, and you never once got asked for consent. Every relationship that runs on your instant availability was built the same way a habit gets built. Small, repeated, unexamined, until the pattern is running you instead of the other way around. You didn't choose this. Nobody sits down one day and decides to become permanently on call for everyone they know. It happens by accretion, one reasonable sounding exception at a time, until the exceptions are the rule and the rule has your name on it. That changes today, not with an argument, not with a confrontation. There's a specific move that breaks this, and by the end of this video, you're going to know exactly how to run it. It starts with the last thing anyone expects from someone who spent their whole life showing up. There's a version of you that exists only to keep the peace. 100 years ago, Carl Jung already had a name for it. He called it the persona, the mask you build so the world tolerates you without friction. He just didn't have social media around to prove how right he was. The persona replies fast. It says, of course, no problem, when it is, in fact, a problem. It shows up early, stays late, remembers everyone's birthday, and absorbs everyone's bad mood without asking for anything back. It's efficient. It's also a costume, and costumes get worn by people who are afraid of what happens if they're seen without one. Nobody hands you this mask. You built it the first time. Being agreeable got you approval, and being honest got you conflict. A teacher who liked you better quiet, a parent who only relaxed when you needed nothing. By adulthood, the lesson runs on autopilot. You don't decide to perform anymore. You just do it the way you don't decide to breathe. Here's the mechanism almost nobody examines. The more smoothly your mask performs, the less anyone around you ever meets the thing underneath it. They fall for what you do. They start relying on it. And slowly, with no single dramatic moment marking the shift, you stop being a person to them and start being a service. That's social hypnosis. Not a conspiracy, a drift. A slow, unspoken agreement that you'll always be the one who answers, always the one who adjusts, always the one who shows up. So the relationship never has to get examined too closely. It doesn't work through deception, it works through repetition. Every fast reply teaches the room what to expect next time. Every "I'm fine, don't worry about me" teaches people your needs are optional. Think about the one relative who only calls when something's gone wrong, needs a ride, needs a loan, needs someone to listen, and vanishes the second the crisis passes. They don't think of themselves as using you. That word's too ugly for what they're doing. They just learned from your own behavior that you're reliable for a need they'll have again. And reliable people don't get asked how they're doing. They get used. Underneath all of it sits what we'll call the fog. The low static of being needed by people who never once ask if you're doing well. You feel it as tiredness sleep doesn't fix, as resentment with no clear target. You can be in a room full of people who supposedly love you and still feel it settle in, because fake affection and real affection look identical from the outside. A hug's a hug. A love you is a love you. The fog is what makes it impossible from inside the pattern to tell which one is real, because you're standing too close to measure it. You can't see the shape of water while you're still swimming in it. To know who genuinely values you and who's just drawing on your availability, you need distance. And distance is the one thing your current life has never made room for. Here's what nobody tells you. The pain of being used and the pain of being loved can feel almost identical in the moment, because both involve someone needing you. Most people spend years confusing one for the other and call the confusion a relationship. They mistake being needed for being wanted and build entire identities on top of the mistake. The reliable one, the strong one, the one who always has it together. Never once asking whether those labels were chosen or just handed to the most convenient person in the room. There's a specific exhaustion that comes from this, and it doesn't respond to rest, because rest was never the problem. What's missing is the feeling of being wanted for no functional reason at all, sought out with nothing to gain from the seeking. Most adults haven't felt that in years and have quietly stopped expecting to. They rebuild their sense of worth around what they produce instead, because a finished favor gets a thank you and a held-together crisis gets praise. Just existing with nothing to offer gets nothing. So the mask learns correctly that existing alone doesn't pay, and it stops trying. This is the trade almost nobody notices they made. Somewhere back in the sequence of teachers who preferred you quiet and relatives who only called when things went wrong, you swapped the terrifying uncertainty of being loved for the stable, predictable comfort of being needed. Needed is safer. Needed has a job description. Needed doesn't require anyone to choose you for no reason, because there's always a reason handy. The cost of that trade shows up later, in rooms full of people who supposedly love you, when a specific dread arrives right on schedule. The sense that if you stop producing tomorrow, half the room would just stop calling. You don't say it out loud. Saying it out loud would mean finding someone to argue with. And the fog doesn't organize itself into anything you can argue with. It's not a person, it's a condition. And conditions don't respond to conversation. They only respond to a change in the environment that produced them. There's only one way to burn off fog like this, and it's not therapy, not journaling, not another conversation where you explain your feelings to someone who was never listening for them in the first place. It's withdrawal. Not the panicked kind, not running from a room because it got too loud. A cold, deliberate, temporary removal of yourself from the picture, long enough that the picture has to reorganize without you in it. Call it tactical withdrawal. Say it out loud. Most people never will, because most people have never once in their adult life gone quiet on purpose. This isn't hiding. Hiding comes back the same, mask fully intact, having learned nothing. This has an objective. It's a controlled cut, and you're running it to find out something you can't find out any other way. Who reaches out when the utility disappears, and who was only ever checking in on the function. Understand what invisibility actually does, because most people get this backward. They think disappearing removes them from the picture. It does the opposite. It removes the noise. So what was already there becomes possible to see clearly for the first time. When you go quiet, you're not hiding from your life. You're finally getting a clean look at it. Every relationship you have has been operating inside a fog of constant contact thick enough that reciprocity and one-sided extraction look roughly the same from inside it. Pull the fog away, even for a short window, and the shapes underneath become impossible to miss. Some people move toward the silence, unsettled by it, curious about you specifically. Others just route around it, find the functions somewhere else, and never notice you were gone. The gap doesn't create that difference. It only makes a difference that already existed visible. This is why withdrawal frightens the people who depend on your availability far more than it frightens you. A person who values you experiences your silence as an absence, something missing, someone to reach for. A person who values your utility experiences it as an inconvenience, a task now unassigned. Watch which reaction shows up. It won't lie to you the way words do. Expect your body to fight you on this before your mind does. Your palm will actually itch for the phone. That's not a metaphor. That's the leash tightening. Every system you're embedded in has been calibrated around your predictable presence, and removing yourself, even briefly, doesn't happen quietly. Some corners of it will short-circuit. People will call it selfish. They'll call it a phase, an overreaction. Unlike you. Notice how many of those complaints are about their comfort and how few are about your well-being. That gap is itself a piece of evidence. None of this requires cruelty. You're not punishing anyone. You're simply refusing, for a defined stretch, to keep supplying the one thing that's been messing with how you see your entire life. Your constant, unconditional presence. Remove it. Then look at what's left standing. What's left is the truth, and the truth doesn't need you to defend it, explain it, or apologize for finally seeing it. Jung wrote about the danger of living entirely inside the mask, of mistaking it for the whole of the self until the two fuse, and there's nothing left underneath to individuate at all. He called the antidote a confrontation with the unconscious, a deliberate turn inward, away from the crowd's expectations, toward whatever's actually there when no one's watching and grading the performance. You can't have that confrontation on a group call. You can't have it while responding to a notification. It requires a room with no audience in it, held open long enough that the part of you built for approval finally runs out of things to perform. And something underneath it, older and far less interested in being liked, gets a turn to speak. Who is that exactly? You're about to find out. Half of what this produces is information about other people. Who noticed, who didn't, who was there for you, and who was there for what you provided. The other half, quieter and more permanent, is information about yourself. What do you actually want once there's nobody to perform wanting it for? Most people go their whole lives without answering that, because they're never alone long enough in the true sense to be asked. And one distinction matters here. This isn't isolation as a lifestyle. Isolation as an identity is its own mask. A colder one, usually built by someone who got burned once and decided the fix was never being reachable again. That's not strategy, that's fear-wearing armor. This has an end date built in from the start. It's a tool, not a wall. Here's exactly how it's done. No theory left unapplied. Step 1 is the silence. Pick a window, 5 days minimum, 14 if you can manage it, and cut the flow. Not forever, not as a scene, just a controlled drop in signal. That means don't message people first, and don't like, comment, or react to anything online. Don't check who viewed your story, who posted, who's doing what without you. If someone reaches you directly with something that actually needs a response, answer. Briefly, plainly, without the usual warmth stapled to the end of it. You don't owe anyone an explanation for the withdrawal. An explanation is a request for approval, and approval is exactly what you're stepping outside of. Turn off notifications entirely if you can stand it. If you can't yet, that tells you something about the size of the grip this pattern has on you. Take note of that instead of fighting it. Expect real discomfort in the first 48 hours. Your hand will still reach for the phone out of muscle memory. Your mind will manufacture emergencies that need your input. Almost none of them will be real. This is your nervous system throwing a tantrum because you took its toy away. Let the tantrum happen. Don't argue with it. Handle categories differently. Group chats don't need to be left, just stopped being fed. Mute family threads without a word of warning. Pause the standing call, the weekly favor, the default plan. Pause them, don't cancel them, with nothing offered beyond, I'm stepping back for a bit. The goal of this step is simple. Stop generating the signal that trained everyone around you to expect you on demand. Step 2 is observation, and it asks nothing of you but attention. Watch who notices. Watch who reaches out once, gets a short answer, and reaches out again anyway. Not because they need something, but because the silence itself bothered them. Write that down. Watch who goes quiet the moment you stop being useful and reappears the moment they need something again. Write that down too. Keep a private list. 2 columns, nothing elaborate. A note on your phone will do. Column 1, people whose behavior changed because they missed you. Column 2, people whose behavior changed because they missed what you did for them. Don't guess. Don't assume the best. Record only what actually happens. Pay attention to the shape of the contact, not just whether it comes. A message that opens with "How are you?" and actually waits for the answer belongs in column 1. A message that opens with a favor, a question, or a task dressed up as a check-in belongs in column 2, no matter how warm the wrapping is. People are skilled at wrapping extraction in the language of care. Read past the wrapping and notice who never reaches out at all. Sit with what that tells you without softening it. Silence from someone you thought was close isn't neutral. It's information you've been avoiding until now. Most people never run this exercise because they're afraid of what column 2 will say about the people closest to them. Run it anyway. The list you're afraid to make is usually the one you need most. Step 3 is the prune, and you run it without a debate and without do-overs. Anyone who lives exclusively in column 2, anyone whose entire pattern of contact is need-triggered, favor-triggered, convenience-triggered, gets a smaller share of you going forward. Not necessarily zero, not necessarily a dramatic exit with a speech attached, just less, slower replies, fewer favors offered before they're even asked for. No more volunteering yourself into gaps other people should be filling on their own. You don't owe anyone an announcement of this. Boundaries explained in advance get offered up for negotiation, and the people most invested in your old availability will fight hardest for it. Boundaries simply lived are boundaries that hold. Expect resistance dressed up as concern. You've changed. You're being distant. Is everything okay with you lately? Some of it will come from people who genuinely worry. Most of it, if you're honest about your own list, will come from people whose access to you just got smaller and don't know how to name what they're actually upset about. You're not required to manage their reaction for them. That urge to soothe everyone's discomfort with your boundary is the exact instinct that built the fog in the first place. For the people in column 1, invest differently. If it's true, tell them their presence mattered during a stretch when you pulled back from everyone else. Let that relationship carry more of your actual weight going forward, because it's already proven it can. This was never about ending up alone. It's about ending up surrounded by people who chose you, specifically with no reason on offer at all. That's the only kind of company worth keeping the mask off for. When the window closes and you step back into contact, you won't be returning as the person who left. The mask that used to answer every message in 60 seconds isn't required to come back online. You get to decide deliberately how much of it you rebuild, and most of what made you exhausted doesn't need rebuilding at all. You return not as a performer working a room, reading every face for approval before deciding how to act. You return as someone who's already seen, with evidence instead of guesswork, exactly who stands where in the architecture of your life. That's the actual prize here. Not solitude for its own sake, not coldness as a personality. Clarity. The fog doesn't survive contact with distance. And once it's gone, it doesn't easily come back, because now you know what to look for the next time it starts forming. Boundaries built this way don't need defending in arguments, because they were never announced in the first place. They just exist, the way a locked door exists. Not a statement, just a fact the room eventually adjusts to. People will call you different. Some will call it distant and mean it as a complaint. Let them. Distance is only a complaint from someone standing on the wrong side of a boundary they used to walk through freely. You'll also notice something quieter than the resentment of the people who lost access. The people who stayed will feel closer, not further, because for the first time the closeness isn't being manufactured by your constant output. It's simply there, holding its own weight, without you propping it up every hour of every day. That's what a real bond feels like once the fog lifts. Lighter, steadier, chosen and rechosen, without a single reminder from you that it should be. Somewhere down the line, the fog will try to build back up. It always does. That's not a failure. That's just what happens when you go back to living among people. When it does, you won't have to wonder what to do about it anymore. You'll recognize the static the second it starts, because you'll know exactly what it feels like from the inside, and you'll know exactly what breaks it. That's the real return on all of this. Not a one-time fix. A permanent instrument you now carry, one most people will go their whole lives without ever picking up. You didn't disappear to find yourself. You disappeared to find out exactly who was using you. And now you know. That's not peace. That's leverage. You vanished to stop being furniture in a life you were supposed to be living from the center of. Disappearance, used correctly, isn't the absence of a self. It's the first place a self is finally allowed to show up.
The people who value your utility will vanish the moment you stop being useful. Let them go.
Subscribe if you're ready to stop being a tool.